So this is a Oneplus One, a phone that I paid €250 for 2 years ago. It was marketed as the flagship killer at the time, and it really was a worthy competitor to phones like the Galaxy S5. But if you pay €250 for a phone today, it will not get a higher benchmark score than this one. And the new OnePlus phones aren't really a worthy comparison because they now cost almost twice as much. Hey, I'm Brian with EBO Gadgets, and are budget smartphones stagnating? A little over 2 years ago I bought a OnePlus One. I paid €249 for the phone at the time, and it was marketed as the flagship killer back then because it could match the hardware and performance of the Galaxy S5 and the One M8, the known brand €700 flagships of that day. But if you pay €250 for a phone today, it will not even get close to the performance of a Galaxy S8. And actually, it will not even get higher performance than a phone from 2 years ago for the same price. Whether this is all due to an increase in price or the innovation being stagnant is really up to you. But I think that's a combination of both. An increase in pricing is something that doesn't only plague the former budget category of phones, but rather the whole market in general. The two Galaxy S6s and S7s both launched for $600 for the smaller model and $700 for the more expensive variant. The Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus have bumped that up to $750 and $850 respectively. And to come back to the budget category, the Moto G line has also got its price increased by around $100 if you don't factor in the Amazon subsidized models. So why are those former low-cost options moving into the price territory of former flagship killers, while those get as expensive as the old flagships, which are now just moving up to an open end? This is what ultimately leads to phones for the same prices of 2 years ago and now getting the same benchmark results. They're actually a lower category of devices. They just moved up in price. So the performance of all the phones has increased, but the price hasn't stayed the same like it usually does with tech. It increased too. To try to understand this, let's dive into smartphone innovation over the last few years. Until last year, new smartphones were generally all about bumping specs. Better cameras, display resolutions, CPUs, RAM, storage. It was all about the numbers. And it had to be because smartphones as a category weren't that mature yet. There are still problems getting the experience smooth and bringing the cameras and displays up to par with what DSLRs and computer monitors offered. At that time, it was easy to maintain a constant price with every new device because the silicon increased in performance for the same manufacturing cost. It's just like AMD and Intel can release new CPUs with more performance for the same price every year. The same kind of performance got cheaper with moving innovation. But that has changed throughout the last year. It's not that CPUs aren't getting faster at the rate that they have always been anymore. That is still happening, but there just comes a time when a device is fast enough. With apps not really getting that much more demanding, 6 GB of RAM is already plenty for a smartphone. Heck, if you ask Samsung, even the 4 GB of RAM we got first in phones 2 years ago is enough. And if putting a Snapdragon 821 in your phone is already good enough, putting in a Snapdragon 835 won't really offer a tangible benefit to the end user, but you still have to do it as a manufacturer to please the spec-savvy enthusiasts. This means that the companies have to spend more money on other things that increase the price of the device. But as I mentioned before, they also can't save any money on the core internals because they still have to put in the latest and greatest. We now have tons of little extras on phones that just weren't there before. Fingerprint sensors, curved displays, dual camera sensors, or even iris scanners. All of these things are insanely expensive, at least compared to your typical smartphone CPU. It costs Samsung a whopping 20% more money to make a Galaxy S8 than it had to produce the Galaxy S7 in 2016, which doesn't even factor in the R&D money it takes to fit all of those components in a phone without it exploding. And Samsung passes that price jump right back to you, the consumer. And since all of these features eventually trickle down to the mid-range, because everybody wants a fingerprint sensor and a dual camera, those phones also jump up in price. The problem that this all leads to is pretty simple. The only phones that get you all the performance you can get for the price are low-cost options, because there's just no money left for a fingerprint sensor. All of the other phones have additional cost added to them. The additional features that you get for this cost are pretty nice, but what we have to understand is that makes us get less of an upgrade in terms of performance. OnePlus could have made a OnePlus 3 with a plastic body for as cheap as previous models with updated internals for the same price as those, but that probably wouldn't have sold them as many phones. So they made the phones more premium for a more premium price tag. Since just a new CPU doesn't add anything to the experience anymore these days, everybody does the same. That's why you can now only buy a Moto G for the same price that you bought a OnePlus phone for 2 years ago. And that's also why you can't get more performance by buying at the same price point. From this perspective, it's stagnant. But of course, the other features I mentioned previously do add to the overall experience of using the smartphone. And the mainstream will definitely buy a new phone based on these added things that make themselves good in marketing materials. But as I'm saying time and time again, enthusiasts and the mainstream just don't understand each other. So you and me are just upset that we don't get more performance in a new phone for the same price as it has always been. So we're just left to wait until there has been so much of an improvement that it is worth to buy a new phone, because until then, we're just left questioning if it even is. But what do you think? Do you also feel that the budget smartphone market hasn't changed that much throughout the last year? Did you just realize this now, or do you think that this isn't even the case? Let me know down in the comments below or tweet it at me. And as always, if you liked the video, press the like button and get subscribed to our channel for more content like this. I upload a new episode in the series every Sunday. Also click follow on Instagram and Twitter because I post a lot of cool stuff there, and check out the previous episodes in this series. You should also visit our website because there you'll find the written version of this and other interesting articles. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!